Welcome to another tutorial on using Corona to do game development. Today we're looking at how to use Corona for Android, iPhone, or iPad development, and we're going to be creating some interactivity with some buttons and some interaction in the environment. So we're going to try and accomplish several things with today's particular project. First, we're going to learn about creating objects that we can interact with. Second, we're going to learn how to set the location of specific objects that we've created on the different screen and make that device independent. And third, we're going to add a listener event for that object so that we can actually interact with the environment itself. So let's go ahead and get started and open up our BB Edit. So I've got main Lua opened in BB Edit. As you can see, the code is where we left off from the Hello World project, which is to create a text object as a local variable and then use the display.newText to display Hello World at 50, 50, so that's 50 pixels down, 50 pixels over, with a size of 24, and set the text color of that object to white. Now the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and start creating a new object for this particular project, and that would be an actual button. Now I've already created my button and stored it in the Lua folder. There's my button.png file. I made this to be 100 pixels by 50 pixels in size and set it to a off blue color, so it's ready to go. Now you can create your own button. I used Photoshop to create mine, but of course any visual editor that allows you to create graphics will work just fine for this particular thing. So we're ready to get started then. The next thing that I need to do is go ahead and create the button object itself. To create the button object, I'm going to create a new variable inside the environment. So I'm going to do a local, and I'm going to call it my button, and I'm going to set it equal to a display dot new image, and then set that equal to the button that I created. So button.png, and what that will do is it will load the button onto the screen from the graphic file. Now all I've done is load a graphic onto the screen at this point. If the graphic's not there, it will not be loaded. So you got to make sure you've already created the graphic before you try to do any of this coding. Now all I've done so far is actually load the button into memory. What I need to do now is locate it on the screen. So I'm going to use the X property of my button and set that equal to the display's width divided by 2. When you are working with the .x or the .y property of any object, it is automatically looking at the center of the graphic. It wants to locate, it's going to base this upon the center of the graphic. So by looking at the stage width of the display, which is the width that has been defined for my environment, I'm automatically placing this button in the middle of the screen horizontally. Now we're going to do something similar for the Y property. I actually want the button to show at the bottom of the page. So I need to set the Y property with the stage height minus a few pixels so that it's doesn't go off the screen. And I moved it up 75 pixels from the bottom of the screen. 75 pixels is real good since my button is 50 pixels and it is looking at the halfway through. That's 25 right there, so I'm moving it up 50 pixels from the bottom of the screen. That should be a really good location for the bottom of my Y button. So we can run this now with just this code and it'll show just the button. So if I were to go to the simulator, there you can see I've got the button there and it is displaying Hello World. Now what I want my little project to do here is when I click on the button, it actually moves the Hello World around the screen. So we're going to need to do a little bit of creating of a function to get this to work properly. So let's go back to our BB Edit and we're going to add a function for my button. my button, and we're going to create a tap event for moving my button around. To move the button around, it's going to be just simply changing the XY location of the object, just as we were doing before. So text object.x equals, and we're going to randomly choose a number based upon between 0, which is the top left side, and the maximum stage width. So we'll set a math.random, 0 being our low number, and then stage width as our high number. Do the same for our Y. End, and we're almost ready to go. What we've done is we've created a function that can be called in case somebody taps on the button that we've created, the My Button. However, we still need to put in one more thing, and that is called an event listener. It is a program that's running inside the app so that when somebody actually presses or taps, in this case, on the button that we created, it will call the mybutton.tap event. So let's add that event listener. And there we go. Now when we save and execute this code, it will go through and be able to run our simulation. So we'll go to our simulator. Now, one of the cool things about the Corona simulator is that I don't have to go to open every single time I'm going to run this program. Instead, I can just relaunch it, and it will automatically relaunch the code so that everything will work, and I don't have to go through the whole open process. So now when I click on the button, I have an error. And the error is showing up in the terminal program. It doesn't like one of my arguments. Oh, I made a very simple mistake. I need to insert the word display before stage height. Right now, stage width and stage height actually contain no information. It has to include the word display in front of it. Now, I want to point out that the usefulness of the terminal window when we're working with the program. As you can see here, it was giving the error in the function random to help me do the troubleshooting. It was telling me exactly where the error was occurring, and in this case it was because I left off the keyword display in front of stage height and stage width. So we're throwing in a little bit of how to do troubleshooting as you're learning how to do Corona software development. And so now we're ready to try our simulator again. And there we go. Hello World is moving around the screen. Now we got a problem. Obviously, sometimes when it randomly selects a number, it is partially cutting the word Hello World off. That's not good code.